Welcome back to the Truth Serum. You know where we like to dig into the strange parts of history and culture and try to figure out the hidden stories that shape our world.
That's right.
So today, we're going deep into a really dark part of American history, the Manson family murders.
Yeah.
But we're not just going to, go over the, gruesome details of the crimes. We're going to look at a pretty chilling theory, the possible connection between Charles Manson and the CIA's top-secret mind control program known as MKUltra.
Yeah, that's right. We're going beyond the headlines and the kind of conventional narrative,
Yeah.
to ask, was Charles Manson simply a charismatic psychopath, or could there be something, a little more sinister at play?
Right. And for those who might need a quick refresher, in 1969, Charles Manson and his followers, they were often called the family, they committed a series of brutal murders in Los Angeles. The most infamous being the Tate LaBianca killings, which included the tragic murder of actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant at the time.
Mm.
I mean, the sheer brutality of the crimes
Mm.
and the bizarre, almost ritualistic nature of the murders sent shockwaves across the nation.
And what makes this case even more disturbing, is that Manson himself didn't actually participate in the killings.
Right.
He orchestrated them. He had this uncanny ability to manipulate his followers, convincing them that these murders would spark a race war, what he called Helter Skelter,
Right.
a term that he took from the Beatles song.
Right. So the official story paints Manson as this master manipulator, a delusional figure who used drugs and charisma and fear to control his followers. But that's where this deep dive takes kind of a fascinating turn.
Yeah.
What if those manipulative skills weren't entirely his own?
Right.
What if they were somehow honed or amplified by forces beyond his control?
Yeah, that's where the CIA's MKUltra program comes in, right? This top secret program, which ran from the 1950s to the 1970s, was all about exploring mind control techniques. They use everything from LSD and other drugs to hypnosis and psychological manipulation, all in the name of gaining an edge over the Soviets during the Cold War.
Yeah.
Um,
And the truly disturbing part.
yeah.
MKUltra involved unethical experiments on unwitting subjects, including prisoners and mental patients, places where, as you might have guessed, Charles Manson spent a significant portion of his life.
Exactly. So the question becomes, could Manson have been an MKUltra test subject?
Right.
Maybe even a willing participant?
Right.
It's a theory that has been circulating for decades, and it's hard to ignore some of the evidence that seems to support it.
Right. For one, Manson was known to be a heavy user of LSD, which was a key element of the MKUltra experiments. And we can't overlook the fact that he was in and out of institutions where these experiments were allegedly taking place.
Right, and there's the fact that Manson had this almost superhuman ability to brainwash his followers, to bend their realities to his will. Some theorists argue that this could be a direct result of exposure to MKUltra techniques.
Right. It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
How the lines between the counterculture, government experiments, and criminal activity all seem to converge around Manson. It makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Was he a pawn in a larger, darker game?
It's a question Errol Morris explores in his Netflix documentary Chaos, The Manson Murders. He revisits the case, delves into the MKUltra connection, and highlights some pretty significant inconsistencies in the official narrative, suggesting that there's more to this story than we've been told.
One of the most compelling aspects of the documentary is how Morris connects Manson not just to MKUltra, but to the 1960s counterculture itself.
Right.
Manson was deeply embedded in that scene. He had ties to key figures like Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys and Augustus Owsley Stanley III, a notorious LSD chemist.
And Manson was a master at using LSD to manipulate his followers. He wasn't just using it recreationally. He understood its power to break down people's realities and make them more susceptible to his influence. This ties back to MKUltra because the CIA was deeply interested in LSD's potential for mind control.
Right, so you have this strange overlap, LSD being used by both a counterculture figure like Manson and by the CIA in their clandestine experiments. It makes you wonder if there could be a connection, if Manson's use of LSD was somehow tied to a larger, more insidious plan.
This theory certainly raises a lot of intriguing questions, but of course it's not without its critics. Some people argue that the whole MKUltra Manson connection is just speculation, that there's no concrete evidence linking Manson to the program directly. They point to the fact that Manson's name doesn't appear in any of the declassified MKUltra documents.
Right, and they make a valid point, but it's also important to remember that MKUltra was shrouded in secrecy. Much of what we know about it comes from declassified documents and investigations that happened years after the program ended. So the absence of Manson's name doesn't necessarily rule out the possibility of involvement.
That's true, and some skeptics argue that even if Manson was involved with MKUltra, it doesn't necessarily explain the murders. They say that his manipulative abilities can be attributed to his personality and the social dynamics of the 1960s, a time of social upheaval and searching for meaning. Manson, they argue, simply exploited vulnerable individuals seeking belonging.
It's a valid point, but is it possible that both things could be true?
Yeah.
Could Manson have been both a product of his time and a subject of government experimentation? Could those two factors have combined in some way to create the monster he became?
These are complex questions with no easy answers, and that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It forces us to grapple with the dark potential of human manipulation, the blurred lines between counterculture and government control, and the enduring mystery of Charles Manson and his motives.
I'm already feeling my mind bending a little with all of this.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll explore some of the counter-arguments to this theory in more detail and discuss whether the MK-Ultra Manson connection is a legitimate possibility or just a compelling conspiracy.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to unpack. And to be fair to the skeptics, there are some valid counterarguments to the MK Ultra Manson theory. For example, some people point to the chaotic nature of the Manson family murders, arguing that they seem too random and disorganized to be part of like a calculated CIA operation.
Yeah, that's true. If the CIA was really behind this, you would expect the murders to be more strategic, wouldn't you? More like a classic hit than a series of seemingly random acts of violence.
Exactly. And that kind of feeds into another counterargument, the lack of a clear motive. Right. If the CIA was trying to, destabilize society or test out mind control techniques, why target these specific victims?
Right.
What was the end game?
Yeah, it's a good point. The victim seemed almost randomly chosen, which doesn't really fit the profile of like a planned government operation. But then again, maybe that was the point. Maybe the randomness was part of the design, to create chaos and so fear.
That's certainly a possibility, but without any hard evidence to support it, it remains in the realm of speculation. And that's really the crux of the issue with the MK Ultra Manson theory.
Right.
It's a compelling narrative. It fits into like a larger cultural fascination with conspiracies and government overreach. But ultimately, it's a theory built on circumstantial evidence and conjecture.
So where does that leave us? Are we saying that the MK Ultra Manson connection is definitely false? Or is there still a chance, however slim, that there might be something to it?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that just because we haven't found definitive proof doesn't mean it didn't happen. The CIA was very good at covering its tracks, especially when it came to programs like MKUltra. And remember, a lot of the information about MKUltra is still classified, so it's possible that there's evidence out there that we just haven't seen yet.
That's true. And even if we never find that smoking gun, the very existence of a program like MKUltra raises some troubling questions about government overreach and the potential for abuse of power. The fact that the CIA was experimenting with mind control, even if they never directly used it on Manson, is disturbing enough on its own.
Absolutely, and it forces us to confront the dark side of human nature, the capacity for manipulation and control that exists within us all. Whether or not Charles Manson was a product of MKUltra, his story serves as a chilling reminder of the power of influence and the dangers of unchecked authority.
I think it's a great point to wrap up this part of our deep dive. The Manson family murders are a complex and disturbing chapter in American history, and the theories surrounding them, like the MKUltra connection, continue to fascinate and intrigue us. Whether or not we ever get definitive answers, these cases force us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world we live in.
Exactly, and it's that exploration of the unknown, the willingness to question the official narrative that makes these deep dives so rewarding. We may not always find the answers we're looking for, but the journey itself can be incredibly insightful.
Well said. Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, I'd like to take a moment to remind our listeners that we love hearing from you. So if you have any thoughts on the MK Ultra Manson connection, or if you have any suggestions for future deep dives, please share them with us. You can leave a comment on our website, send us an email, or connect with us on social media. We're always looking for new topics to explore, so don't be shy about reaching out. We might just feature your suggestion in a future episode. But for now, let's wrap up our deep dive into the possible connection between Charles Manson and the CIA's MKUltra program.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating discussion, hasn't it? We've explored the history of MKUltra, delved into the details of the Manson family murders, and examined the evidence both for and against this intriguing theory.
And while we may never know for sure if Manson was truly a product of MKUltra or just a particularly skilled manipulator who exploited the chaos of his time, I think we can all agree that this case raises some profound questions about the nature of power, control, and the human capacity for both good and evil.
Absolutely. And regardless of where you stand on the MK Ultra Manson connection, I think we can all take away a valuable lesson from this deep dive.
What's that?
To question everything, to be critical thinkers, to not just accept the official narrative at face value, but to dig deeper, to explore alternative perspectives, and to always be open to the possibility that there might be more to the story than meets the eye.
I think that's a perfect note to end on, so until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay curious. And remember, the truth is out there, somewhere. We're always looking for new topics to explore, so don't be shy about reaching out. We might just feature your suggestion in a future episode. But for now, let's wrap up our deep dive into the possible connection between Charles Manson and the CIA's MKUltra program.
It's been a fascinating discussion, hasn't it? We've explored the history of MK Ultra, delved into the details of the Manson family murders, and examined the evidence both for and against this intriguing theory.
Yeah, and while we may never know for sure if Manson was truly a product of MKUltra or just a particularly skilled manipulator who exploited the chaos of his time, I think we can all agree that this case raises some profound questions about the nature of power, control, and the human capacity for both good and evil.
Absolutely. And regardless of where you stand on the MK Ultra Manson connection, I think we can all take away a valuable lesson from this deep dive.
What's that?
To question everything, to be critical thinkers, to not just accept the official narrative at face value, but to dig deeper, to explore alternative perspectives, and to always be open to the possibility that there might be more to the story than meets the eye.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. So until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay curious. And remember, the truth is out there, somewhere.